Hi. I'm tired of saving the world. I'm Florian, and I'm going to talk about why I want to see more mundane stories in video games. To do so, I'm going to talk a bit about painting. Before the 19th century in Europe, painting was done in studios. Artists went outside to do sketches and used these sketches to paint, to depict nature or other things. There were a number of themes and subjects that were represented, like mythology, religious scenes, important historical events, etc. And an artist would only rarely depict everyday life because their work was generally done in commission. So when they did depict contemporary events, it was often enhanced and making it better than reality to please their clients. Around 1818, the painter Théodore Géricault made the Raft of the Medusa, an uncommissioned painting showing survivors of a terrible shipwreck that made the news back then. Géricault approached making this the way one would approach making a documentary, going to talk to survivors and everything, and that did not sit well with the classicists and the academy back then. The theme was way too real, and the colors were way too close to reality, and it was not. It wasn't depicting. It wasn't aesthetic enough, basically. So Géricault was a precursor of the realist art movement, a movement which started to depict everyday scenes of life and work. I wrote here, say something about serious games, but I don't, this laid down the basis of the Impressionist movement. So Impressionism is an art movement that became very important during the second half of the 19th century in Europe, and with which painters started to have a more authorial approach to their art. This was happening partially because the tools they were using to make their paintings became more readily available. The new tools they had, like paint held in tubes, allowed them to work much quicker than before and weren't confined to their studios to do so. This naturally brought forth the notion of painting outside and painting what was directly in front of the artist's eyes. For example, some artists started to make series of paintings to depict variations of light in real time. You had the development of photography as well around the same time, basically halting the pursuit of realistic representation. All these conditions brought them to represent things in a much more personal way, expressing how the artist was experiencing the moment instead of pursuing a greater idea or a story to represent. In a way, the democratization of the tools and the objective realism of photography pushed the artist to pursue a more personal representation of things, to rather communicate an impression of reality. So I'd like to see more of that in the subject's video games cover as well. We don't need to fall into the classicist tales of saving the world. We can tell something different than a hero's journey or through terrible trials, I think, today. I don't have an issue with high-stakes stories, but I'm just really tired of them. I mean, we understand what it means to like save the world in a video game nowadays. And the problem I have is, despite these high-stakes stories being so present throughout the medium, it's still something, even the people making new and fresh games and things, even the avant-garde, are often resorting to these kinds of stories, and I think that's something that would need a bit of change nowadays. So I decided to talk about Impressionism because it offers one possible answer to this that I haven't seen explored in video games a lot yet. Instead of high stakes, they went for personal, intimate moments, or even better, in my opinion, impressions of intimate moments. We should allow ourselves to talk about more personal things, have a more authorial approach to making games, And I'd love to see more narrative games about insignificant, non-life altering events and stories. We don't need to always tell something exceptional. So vignette games are starting to do this, and I'm super happy they exist and would love to see more of them. But they're just one way of telling something different and new with video games. I'm eager to see what else we can come up with, and to tell by telling more insignificant stories. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great event.